Good afternoon. Good afternoon, one and all. I welcome to today's press conference, the media. I welcome all those viewers online. I welcome the Premier, Permanent Secretary, Foster Rogers, Commissioner of Police, and CMO. Welcome to everyone. My sensor light just went out, so every now and then I'll have to wave my hand to get it back on. As usual, we'll start with a prayer. I'll open us up with prayer so we can all bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father God, we thank you for your goodness. We thank you once again, Lord, for your love and your mercies towards us, God. We thank you that even though we are in this setback position dealing with COVID, God, we still see the blessings, Father, to be in the land of the living, God. We just thank you for spared life. We thank you for all those who have recovered. And we continue to pray, God, for those who are feeling ill at this time, those who are struggling to get over this virus and other illnesses that they may have. We continue to keep the health team in our prayer, those frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, immigration, police, customs, the general public, God, everyone in Angola, we continue to keep them in our prayer, Father. May you continue to protect us, Father, and may we all look forward with hope to the silver lining beyond the dark cloud, God. We pray for healing of this nation and for healing of our people. We ask these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. On our agenda today, we'll have opening statement by the Premier. He's going to update us on where we're at. We're going to talk about the exit strategy as well. And the CMO and the PS, Permanent Secretary, will also update us on the cluster. We have Commissioner of Police joining us again today to give us his usual update, and then we'll go into questions and answers. And then the Premier will wrap it up. So I turn it over to the Premier to begin with his opening statements. Unmute, Premier, unmute.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon to Permanent Secretary, Health, Chief Medical Officer, the Commissioner of Police, the media, other ministers and persons online, to Anguilla in general. I want to say a pleasant good afternoon and hope that all are safe and healthy. Again, want to just say condolences to the family of the late Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes, who passed away 1 week ago, and he's still missed. I want to thank the health team for doing the job they're doing, during this cluster to do the testing, the tracing, the monitoring, surveillance, the necessary things which have helped to keep us relatively safe. The health authority, nurses and doctors who helped those who had to be hospitalized, and they now were kept stable and have been able to be discharged. But it just shows you how tenuous this can be. This COVID-19 disease is not one that is one to play with. I want to thank all who have registered and been vaccinated. I think that all of us who have taken that step or doing what is the right thing for ourselves, for our families, our children, and for this country. And to those who are performing the vaccinations, I think that they are working daily, going out there and helping others and taking on this task, in such a bold fashion, tirelessly working to get this country immunized so that we can get back to a sense of normalcy. On Tuesday, the 20th of April, before the cluster of cases were identified, there were 6,115 persons vaccinated. And the cluster of positive cases demonstrated how vulnerable we are as an island, testing our health team, our healthcare system, testing our resources. It is pleasing to note that people of Anguilla, recognizing this, went out, registered, and another over 2,000 persons have been vaccinated since that time. And I want to thank each one for doing that. We are now at over 8,100 persons vaccinated, and we are on the way to 10,000. That's where we want to get so that we have that chance to have herd immunity. The vaccine is our greatest tool in ensuring the protection of life. Vaccination is the main strategy to return to a state of normalcy. Ensuring the immunity of our population gives assurance that we can resume our businesses, schools, churches, sports, that we can see each other. We need to take our duty of care towards everyone seriously and ensure that those most vulnerable, whose jobs require them to come into contact with members of the public, are properly protected. We have to protect ourselves and those around us and those who cannot be vaccinated. That's our duty of care. And as government, authorities, and employers, this we have to take into consideration. The increase in vaccinated people is encouraging, and I hope that the current drive continues to incentivize all remaining eligible adults to get vaccinated. And that's why the incentives are put in place to just encourage persons. And we know that you've listened, you've heard, and you know that it is the thing to do. And we just want to encourage everyone that is eligible to get vaccinated. As a responsible authority, the government, we do need to consider that additional measures may have to be taken and required, including the requirement to be vaccinated for jobs where there's close proximity with members of the public, where that's unavoidable. Additional measures may have to be taken to ensure that persons become vaccinated. Because when people are vulnerable, governments have to make decisions to help the whole population. And so today I'm just continue to encourage persons to go out and get vaccinated. And I want to thank all those who have gotten at least their first dose and are moving towards their second dose, and those who are still on the fence. I know that you have heard Anguillan doctors in the diaspora who have come on the last few days and have spoken to you and pleaded with you passionately, and even explaining their experiences with COVID-19 disease and the ravages it has had on the health of persons, not only in the US, in Europe, we know about India and elsewhere. And globally, this pandemic has caused a lot of havoc with healthcare, with deaths, and so we want to make sure that Anguilla is spared that. And so that's why I'm asking. We've had Anguillan nurses who've also come on and spoken about their, close calls with COVID-19, working in emergency rooms, intensive care units. And so again, we can only ask and beg of you to get out there, get registered, get vaccinated, and get immune, stay healthy for yourself and for those around you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. We're going to move straight into the CMO to give her statements.
Good afternoon. Since we last met on Monday, we can now confirm that we've had 78 persons detected linked to the cluster that was identified on April 21st. So that's where number stands. So overall for Anguilla, from the beginning of this pandemic to now, we have confirmed 109 cases of COVID-19 here. Most of these persons have in fact recovered, including the ones from the cluster. So to date, we have 14 persons considered active at this time. In terms of the most important developments overall, we noted that prior to Monday, over the weekend, we had an increase, but we said it was mostly old cases in the sense that these were household contacts of known cases. So we did not determine that to be a worsening or an expansion of the cluster per se, although we were, unfortunately increased our numbers. But with the events of Monday, the developments, those 3 persons should be considered new cases and a slight expansion of the cluster. And we're looking to, the situation still looks largely contained, but it speaks to what we always talked about not quite being out of the woods as yet, and that the new cases would be the ones that we are looking at in terms of assessing the situation. So thus far from those 3, we're doing the contact tracing, no new positives so far. However, you know how it goes, that the person's under quarantine as a result, so we'll know for sure in the next 2 weeks. So that's where that stands. We've had no more hospitalizations, thank goodness, no deaths as well. Just a little head count, we're at 68 adults, 10 children. Vast majority have in fact recovered. On Monday in the evening, we were alerted to the fact that in terms of developments, in terms of the travel advisory, that the CDC did in fact change our status classification. We're not a level 2, where we were previously at a level 1. Several press conferences ago, we did indicate that WHO had changed our status to clusters. So it's just to say that once you have these events in your country, there are consequences. So that this comes as disappointment, but not a great surprise. I believe someone had asked a question about another travel advisory out of Ireland. We were the 2 most recent countries to be added along with Nepal. So again, once we have the situation that escalates, there are repercussions internationally. So we continue with our contact tracing. We've screened almost 1,500 persons, and we'll see how it goes. Things look like they have been largely exhausted on that score. Situation looks largely contained, but a lot depends on the measures we have put in place. And I think the recent developments of Monday reinforce that. This is of paramount importance. Looking at vaccination update, just to reinforce what the Premier said, we've seen a considerable increase. Couple of thousand persons that have signed up and that have had their first doses. So that continues to go in the right direction in our estimation, with over 8,758 persons registered and over 8,200 persons having received a first dose. 4,047 persons having received a second dose, and we carry on in that regard. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank the private sector for chiming in on the recent incentivization and the prizes given and the attempts to incentivize the vaccination process. So we thank you for coming on board with some innovative ideas. It is a all sector, whole of country response, and that's very much appreciated by health and I know by the government and so on for coming up with those initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, CMO. And as we move on to the PS of Health, I would like to slip a question in here for him as he opens up with his comments. So the question is, the person wants to know if all frontline healthcare workers have been vaccinated, in particular those given the jab, working for Health Authority of Angola. So as you open up with your comments, if you can slip the answer for this one in between, that would be appreciated.
Thank you very much, Minister Hart. Appreciate it. I too like to express my thanks to the private sector for really being a partner with us in this plan to ensure that Angola is protected from COVID-19, not only in terms of incentives that Dr. Aisha mentioned, but certainly in terms of the direct support to the health team. We want to thank them so much. We have gotten, almost every day, we've gotten lunch from different restaurants for the entire team, not only here at the ministry, but the vaccination team at the park, at the football stadium, and also the lab staff at our hospital. We certainly want to thank the private sector for assisting us in this regard. It's very important that you continue with us, because certainly we are in this together. We want to thank you so much, and we will begin to name all of those persons in due course. But we want to thank you so much for the assistance given. Just to add, before I answer the question of whether persons were vaccinated, I would like to add a particular statement to continue on what Aisha spoke about. So the last 3 cases that we identified, I think on a Monday, speaks to the issue of us ensuring that the movement of persons in Angola at this point in time is kept to a minimum. The WHO has always advised us from the beginning of this pandemic that a way to control the virus is to isolate it if you identify someone as positive, test, isolate, and treat. So it's critical that we maintain some of the restrictions in place with regard to the movement of persons, because this is important for us to ensure that we keep the virus at bay and that we keep it in certain small sectors. If we do not do that, then it's quite possible that this would jump into different spheres. And if that is done, certainly it changes our category altogether. Now, as Aisha mentioned, our status has been changed to level 2. That certainly by CDC, that certainly has implications for us. And certainly if we were to go to a step where it's considered community spread, then that will change our status again. So we're working very hard to ensure that does not happen. And we want persons to really, bear with us a little longer. We know it's difficult being, in your home from 6 to 6, but certainly it's a measure that we think is necessary now. We know it's limiting. We are not doing it because we want to do it. We are doing it because we have to do it. We are doing it because it's one of the few ways of ensuring that people don't move around unnecessarily. Now, even during the day, when persons can move around for essential services, we implore you not to move around if you don't have to. Not because the stores are open, that does not mean you have to move around. We know it's difficult. We know it's extremely difficult to stay at home, but even in the day, if you do not have to move around right now, we ask you please to try to stay at home as much as you possibly can, because that itself is a way for us to limit the spread of the virus during the day as well. So we understand that you are a little frustrated sometimes, and we know human beings are not made to be cooped up, and we're not made to be put aside, but this is a temporary measure. This is a very temporary measure. It's a temporary measure it's a short-term measure for long-term gain, and I'm asking you to look at a long game on this. And if we can get you over the next few weeks, it certainly will bode well for us into the future. With regard to the nurses and health sector personnel vaccinated, currently we have over 90% of the health services vaccinated in Angola, and we're talking public and private sector health services. We have a rolling tally of the sectors that we need vaccinated. We have a rolling tally of the persons in those sectors, and we have a rolling tally of the estimated percentage of those persons in those sectors who have been vaccinated. So I can tell you right now, in the health sector, we have over 90% of the health sector workers vaccinated. We hope to get to that point of 100% rather shortly, and certainly it will come into being certainly that health sector workers are critical workers, and as you know, we have to ensure that those people are covered. So I am quite happy with regard to the numbers of persons in the health services who are vaccinated. Over 90% of the health services workers are vaccinated, and that is one of the highest proportions in any sector in Angola, and we want to thank the health services staff for that support.
Thank you, PS. Just permit me to go back to the CMO to ask a quick question, as I have a lot of questions rolling in before I go to the Commissioner of Police. As you spoke about the cluster, CMO, what do you mean by an expansion of cluster with the 3 new cases from Monday? Are they connected to the original cluster?
Yes, they're certainly still connected, but there are new cases in the sense that, remember when we spoke about the persons we detected on the weekend, those are persons that had been identified as high-risk contacts of in the household. These additional persons were not previously identified as direct contacts of any positive case, so that was new. So that's what I mean, an expansion of the cluster, but through the contact tracing and the investigation, they are in fact directly linked to somebody who had tested positive before.
Okay, thank you, CMO. Thank you, PS. Now we move on to the Commissioner of Police, Mr. David Lynch, for his update.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And just as an observer, really, I'd like to thank the Health Authority. I think they've done a stunning job. I don't think they've. I think at the end of this, they literally deserve medals because they've done some fantastic work here over the last few weeks. Absolutely brilliant work. I've written to Foster a couple of weeks ago at the very beginning of this, but they just get better and better, the Health Authority. But my update again is very brief, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, we've done a number of land patrols. We did 8 land patrols. We've done 2 vehicle checkpoints, and we stopped 15 vehicles, which is a really good sign. In terms of people who've breached it, we've had none. So that's a really good sign as well. And we would again continue to ask people to confidentially email us if they believe people are breaching them, breaching the regulations, and that's www.gov.ai/911. That's www.gov.ai/911. And we've had 2 boats spotted in the ocean over the last 24 hours, and they were both intercepted. The one was a yacht, I think, going to Bermuda, I think, and never came to this island. But we've actually, we're doing quite well, but obviously the really good work is being done by the Health Authority at the moment. So congratulations to the Health Authority. And that's my overall update.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have several questions to ask on my end that was sent directly to me. But in the meantime, if the press can raise their hands so that I can go straight to them right after asking a few of these questions here. First question.
Minister,
Yeah?
I think I missed giving the exit strategy update. So I know you will not be happy with me. If I can say that now, that would be great.
Yes,
and that might
okay.
help people to get their questions and thoughts. So basically, starting tomorrow, which is the 14th of May, we go to step 2, which is indoor mass gatherings for fully vaccinated persons, and will be allowed. And fully vaccinated means having had 2 doses of the vaccine and 3 weeks after receiving the second dose. So indoor mass gatherings will be allowed. For example, church services, restaurants, indoor and outdoor sit-down dining, liquor, licensed premises, and gyms. And I think we're still looking at limited to 12 persons. 2 families can meet indoors, including with unvaccinated minors. All adults must be fully vaccinated. Groups limited to a maximum of 12 persons. And this is limited to 2 family groups at any given point in time. And then it's the responsibility of any establishment to maintain a log of those attending, including the date, time, table sitting, and contact information. And that is so in case, say, a positive case develops, we can do the contact tracing. And so, again, indoor mass gatherings for fully vaccinated persons allowed. Church services, restaurants, indoor and outdoor sit-down, liquor licensed premises, gyms, for up to 12 persons. Again, we still want practice, social distancing. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. I have a sort of long-winded question, so I'll ask it in a very slow manner so that we can understand what the question is asking. Shoppers normally visit several supermarkets when shopping, spending at least a couple hours, and can therefore easily spread infection. Whereas persons attending church normally go straight back home. In view of this, and the fact that for the past 3 weeks, unvaccinated persons are freely allowed to enter gas stations and supermarkets with fully vaccinated persons, where they handle potentially contaminated shelf items, grocery carts, and cash. It seems that the restriction on unvaccinated but masked pastors not being able to enter the pulpits or even their churches in the presence of 12 fully vaccinated, physically distanced persons on May 16th, 23rd, and 30th is either a major oversight or a subconscious bias against the church. How do you explain this?
I think you're really comparing apples and oranges. I think people need to really understand what's happening here. In the middle of a pandemic, it is not necessary to go into a house of the Lord to praise the Lord. You can praise the Lord via website. You can praise the Lord via Zoom. You can praise the Lord in different mechanisms and still get your service done. We are still in the middle of that pandemic. When people are allowed to go to a store, they're allowed to go to a store for necessary sustenance to get food and water and stuff to drink that they cannot get any other place. What we have also said in the regulations, and we've asked that people follow these rules, is that you go to the store closest to your home, and during this point in time, do not necessarily go to 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 different stores. And the regulations are quite clear. You go to the store closest to your home, you get your stuff, and you go back. This is not time for luxury shopping. So when you look at all of the regulations and all of the policies in totality, you would see that it's designed for persons to get what they need in a short-term basis and head back home. There's no bias. We know for a fact that certain places and certain small groups spread the virus more rapidly than persons in larger areas and larger groups. And we have shown over and over that churches and choirs and so forth have the potential of spreading to many, many people in short periods of time. In fact, the last press conference I had, we gave 4 examples of where 4 churches plus a choir was able to spread the disease in less than no time to over 500 persons with many deaths, right? So this is not stuff we are making up as we go along. This is not stuff that this is not anecdotal stuff that we're pulling out of our hats. This is stuff that is researched. This is stuff that we implement based on advice, but we also have to get the support of the public. We've asked the public, please, during this time for essential services, please, if you're living in West End, use the shop closest to your house and go back home. If you do not have to come to the Valley, don't come to the Valley. If you do have to go to more than one store, do not go to more than one store. So when you look at all of the policies in totality, you would see that they're designed to stop the spread of the virus.
Thank you, PS. Felicia Hennis from Radio Angola, your hand was up.
Good afternoon. It was up and down because I was listening to Mr. Rogers' comments. So I was wondering if I should still go on with my question, but nonetheless, I will. Since we're on the church, we received communication today from concerned pastors. They shared their letter that they issued to government and ministers, and they talked about government's tone and the lack of communication on government's part as it relates to the vaccine. And what was glaring to me, they said that they are being treated with the same regard as rum shops, lottery, and the restaurants and so forth. So I just wondered, what is the Premier's response to that?
Thank you, Felicia. My response to that, as I responded to the pastors, is that, the virus is not a respecter of any persons. And so we're not equating the church with rum shops and things like that. What we are doing is we're trying to protect everyone from the spread of this virus. We have it contained as a cluster. We wanted it to stay like that as persons, who got sick, they got better and are recovering. We did not want this to spread into the community, and that is why it was necessary to take those steps. And, we have met and discussed that, and we still feel, given these 3 new cases, and even though they are affiliated with the cluster, we want to make sure that there are no further cases out there. And so the next week, at least, will determine that situation. We did say from the beginning that we had the initial 2 weeks, and then we needed two what's the term I'm looking for? We needed
incubation periods.
Two incubation periods to allow us to determine whether we had this fully contained. And that's what we're doing. And so we're not singling out the churches or the pastors to treat them in any way negatively. What we're trying to do is to make sure that we keep the people of Anguilla safe.
All right, thank you. And just to follow up on the second question, I had a few hiccups, some dips and outs, but in your opening remarks, you made mention that government may have to seek additional measures. Could you expound a bit on that for me? Does that mean like a blanket law for persons to be vaccinated?
No, what it means is that persons who are unavoidable close proximity with members of the public, and those are persons which we loosely call frontline workers, will be required to vaccinate. And that is necessary because we are seeing the uptick in those who are registering getting vaccinated, and we appreciate that and hope that the rest of the eligible adult population will continue to do that in the numbers that we are seeing now. But we do know that, and we've tried to incentivize that thanks to the help of the private sector, and the hospitality sector specifically has been very good about that. But if it becomes necessary, then regulations will be put in place to make it so that we get persons who cannot avoid contact with the public, that they have to be vaccinated. It's only necessary to save this country.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. PS, you want to say something?
Yes, if I could just add a second, please. I'm always concerned when people make blanket statements that they have not been consulted and there's a communication issue and these type of things. I think if you go back and you check the records of our consultations with all the sectors and all the groups in Anguilla, you would find that the Christian Council and the Evangelical Association was in particular one of the groups we met with at the library, at the Resource Center, and spoken with them at length about some of the measures, about the issues we were dealing with, vaccinations, the issues we were moving forward with some weeks ago. Now, if some people decide not to turn up to these meetings that everybody were invited to, then you can't expect that to be on our shoulder. But we have gone on to almost every group in Anguilla and have explained the position of the ministry, we've explained the science, and we have explained the initiatives that we would like to take. We have been on every talk show in Anguilla, even talk shows that are run by some of these pastors. On Saturday mornings, when I was supposed to be in church, I've been on talk shows with some of these pastors, different meetings. I'm trying to explain what we're doing. These are some of the things we do as part of our job. And I often explain to the people of Anguilla, in public health, we cannot look at individual interests. We cannot look at the interests of 15,000 individual interests. If we do that, we will end up in a problem. We have to look at the public's interest at large. And the virus cannot tell if you're in a church, if you're in a rum shop, if you're in a school, or if you're in a car. All the virus wants is a warm body, somebody that's breathing, and a lung to go into. That's all it wants. So it doesn't make a difference where you are. The issue is trying to limit gatherings, trying to limit people together, and trying to break the spread of this disease. So it's not that we are creating churches with bars and rum shops. These are different institutions. What we are saying is that all of these places have warm bodies, sitting there with them in close proximity, and we have to break that transmission, whether in a church, whether in a bar, whether in a school. That's the message.
Thank you. Yes, we have Brenda Carter, and then we'll go to Don Hodge.
Good afternoon. My question is, are applications now being taken for tourists who want to come in after May the 25th? And as a second part to that question, after July the 1st, will tourists still have to apply for entry?
Brenda, the portal should be up, and if it's not, it should be up very soon. So persons can apply to come in. And yes, definitely after July 1st, persons will still have to apply to come in, still have to do a test before they come in. And that those who are fully vaccinated will not need to quarantine after July 1st, but they still need to go through the application process. I think we have projected that October is when we would do away with the pre-application to enter Anguilla.
And just to add to what the Premier said, as we are transitioning to the new portal, the other portal still hasn't been closed, but we haven't been processing any applications. I mean, it's not practical. We know that there are a few in the pipeline and they will be managed in a timely manner. But of course, for example, you have to be approved 3 to 5 days prior to arrival with your negative test, and we're not going to be open to visitors until the 25th. So yes, but that other portal is still open for persons to register their interest in coming to Anguilla as we transition to the other one.
All right. I think Don Hodge. Don, you're next.
Yes, thank you. My question also involves the COVID-19 exit strategy, the incremental timelines, the July timeline. So it addresses pretty much people visitors, families, friends from the United States and further. But people who have friends and family in places like St. Martin, St. Kitts, I have a couple questions. Do they also have to use the portal and take the tests prior to coming in, realizing that if everything goes well, they would not have to quarantine? Do they also have to follow the same protocols as, say, the quote-unquote visitors?
Well, that's been the practice across the board. Remember, it's not by nationality, it's just public health measures across the board. So that's the portal we've been using for everybody visiting Anguilla.
Okay.
Same method, same thing.
It's just as it gets closer to becoming more and more open, people who, are right next door are getting antsy and they want to come visit. So I just wanted to be sure that the same protocols are maintained for everybody, that everybody understands that. Okay,
and then actually, yeah, certainly as a matter of fact, when the country was doing well, we had the privilege for most of the Caribbean territories that they had a reduced quarantine because they were low risk, but it's always been the same portal.
Okay, and has a date been set yet, or any thoughts about the local ferry when that would be open in line with the timelines that you have for the exit strategy? Would that happen in July? Would that happen in August, October? Any thoughts yet on that? And when that happens, will people taking the ferry, passengers going and coming, have to be fully vaccinated?
Yes, the same rules will apply. It doesn't make a difference where you are from. The idea is if the only persons who will be able to come to Anguilla unvaccinated will be residents, and then they would have to quarantine for a certain period of time. But any other visitor, once you're not a resident, will have to be vaccinated to come to Anguilla. That's just the way it's going to be going forward. The only persons who will be allowed to come to Anguilla unvaccinated will be Anguillians, and they will have to quarantine for a period of time if they're not vaccinated.
And getting on the ferry to leave when the ferry does open to go to St. Martin, it would be the same protocol, vaccinated only.
Leaving has never been an issue. When you're leaving Anguilla, you have to abide by the protocols of the country you're going to. We don't have any restrictions on leaving. It's when you're coming back to Anguilla, you have to abide by our restrictions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. Can children dine with their family, with their fully vaccinated parents? And another question is 12 people the max for dining at once? So can children dine with their fully vaccinated parents, I guess, as of tomorrow? And is 12 people the max for dining at one time?
Well, at this time, we're saying for the outdoor dining in the restaurants, we'd say no, we're sticking to fully vaccinated persons for the indoor sit down in the restaurants as of 12/23/59 tonight. So at this time, for the next couple of weeks, it's going to be strictly for fully vaccinated persons, fully vaccinated adults. Obviously, at home, it wouldn't be an issue,
Okay, and is 12 people the max for dining? Yes. For restaurant?
Yes, yes.
Okay, another question. How would you know that visitors are showing a genuine vaccinated card?
Certainly, this is something we grapple with even from the days when we're looking at tests. This is always a consideration. As things get more normal, you get from the state so far, it's been fairly easy, to be quite frank. They have a standard CDC card. Nothing is unforgeable, right? So this is why we gave the cushion of the May, June, July up until we fully open to get all these things sort of balanced and stabilized internationally. And all countries are grappling with this. And again, this is the reason why it's more important for us to be vaccinated as well, so that things should balance. So the majority of persons will be genuine. The majority of persons will provide real documents, true documents, but that is a risk. That is a risk, and hence the sort of mitigating things that we do, including insisting that we ourselves are protected to protect against things like that. So it's not impossible for somebody to forge a vaccination card. It's not impossible for somebody to forge a laboratory test result. We've seen that actually in the former. Okay.
Right. Okay. Another question. We see that Pfizer has announced the availability for the vaccine for children 12 to 15. Do we know how close AstraZeneca may be to following suit?
Well, I think AstraZeneca has been studying children since February. They had a cohort of close to 1,000 children between the ages of 6 and 16 that they were studying since about February. They had to pause because of some of the concerns with the blood clots and so forth. So we're waiting for them to start back again. But the timeline for that was always around September. So we'll have to wait and see how that comes. But at the end of the day, we have to ensure that the product we have is approved by a regulatory agency.
And again, this reinforces what we're saying, why we want that targeted population for the herd immunity, so to protect those who cannot be vaccinated at this time. So that is the point. It makes it even more important for the target population to be as close to as 100% as possible, because that will protect those who cannot be vaccinated for whatever reason.
And you can also tell, even the Pfizer vaccine, it just goes down to age 12. It's 12 to 15. All right. If you see what happened here in Angola, we had children as young as 7 months being infected. So really and truly, we're hoping the AstraZeneca version was tested on ages much lower than 12. So we're hoping that results of that study can come out real soon, so we can protect our school children.
All right. Thank you. I see the hand up for NBR Grace FM. You can go ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon. I was just wondering, as it relates to dining effective tomorrow, what would one present to prove that they are fully vaccinated? How are they going to manage that in the restaurants and so forth?
They provide the vaccination card. It has the dates and everything. The blue card you've been given once you're fully vaccinated, and the dates are on there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Brenda Carty.
Sorry, I didn't put my hand down. Sorry about that.
We'll move on to the Anguillian.
Good afternoon. I have a couple questions for the CMO, James Harrigan here. Can a mother who has recently given birth and is breastfeeding take the vaccine 2 weeks after her delivery, per se? Another question, please answer that question first.
Oh, sorry, my mic was off. Yes, she can. Yes, she can. Breastfeeding mothers, and once you're not pregnant, feeling well, delivery in and of itself is a bit of an ordeal. So once she has recovered from that and she's feeling well, she can go ahead and take her vaccine.
Okay, you mentioned a while ago when you first came on about Nepal, and with reference to the question I asked last time, but I didn't get the gist of the answer. Nepal, you mentioned with the restrictions.
Because what the question you had asked last time, I thought my impression was that you had said that Nepal and Anguilla was on a particular list, and I said it was a bit strange. So in answering that, basically the overarching answer is that once you have a situation and your status changes, countries are at liberty to say whether or not you fit under certain categories in terms of travel restrictions and so on. So that's simply what happened. We were the last 2 countries, I guess, to have a deteriorating situation in Ireland's estimation when they revised the list. So we were added to a list with other countries that are already on that list. But the bigger answer and consideration is that once you have a situation with COVID that's deteriorating and your status changes, these things will happen. And I was saying WHO already changed our category 3 weeks ago, and then CDC on the Monday changes to a level 2. So that's going to happen. But when you had asked me the question, it sounded like you were saying we were on a list, just Nepal, and you were even querying if it's really Angola. And I said it would be strange to just have 2 countries on a list. So that's the answer. Yes, because we're not clusters, we are being looked at differently by the international community, and some countries now will put us on a list that we were not on before. So before, when you didn't have to quarantine coming from Anguilla, some countries will say, no, coming from Anguilla, you will have to quarantine and other measures. So that's what has occurred. And I'm sure Ireland won't be the only one, unfortunately.
Thank you. I have a third question. After July the 1st, will security services at villas be required?
I don't think I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is, after July the 1st, when persons get into the island, be vaccinated, and for 3 weeks, would security services at villas still be required?
Well, certainly, are you referring to villas that are filled with vaccinated persons?
Yeah, that would be the situation.
Yeah, because remember now, after July 1st, to come into Angola, you have to be vaccinated. If you can be vaccinated, and if you're a minor that can be vaccinated, you can come in as well. But persons who can be vaccinated will be subject to testing periodically if necessary based on the protocols. So really and truly, the use of security is something that we're going to be dwindling down as we go forward, because we need to get back to as normal as possible. And that is why we keep speaking on getting our local numbers of vaccinations up. That is the key. The key is to ensure that we get to as normal as possible, and having security measures in place and having all these restrictions will not bring Angola back where it needs to be. So I'm certain that at the beginning of July, yes, they'll have some security stuff in place. But I can tell you by the end of October, that won't be necessary, because at the end of the day, we would hope that everybody in Angola who could be vaccinated will be vaccinated. And certainly we hope that we know that all persons coming in will be vaccinated, except those who can be, and that should be enough protection.
All right, thank you. Question: what is the expiration date of the first set of vaccines for the first dose? Is it the 15th or sometime later in May?
The first I think that's some different information in that question. If you're asking for expiration dates, then there are some vaccines. The first batch that we received in February and March, those vaccines expire at the end of this month, at the end of May. The third batch that we got would have been somewhere in April, or thereabout, end of month, early April. Those expire at the end of July, right? So by the end of this month, we would have used all of the initial vaccines that we had. So there shouldn't be any wastage or losses there, in particular now based on the numbers that we are seeing going up. Because if I recall correctly, we got 8,000 doses first, then 4,000 doses. So we'd have gotten 12,000 doses that would have expired at the end of July, at the end of May. So if you look at the numbers now, we would have had currently close to 8,100 persons with the first doses, and then another 4,000 with the second doses. So we should have basically used up almost all of those that would have expired in May. So the balance that we have now would expire at the end of July. So I think the question is, to be fully vaccinated by the end of July, including the 3 weeks that you need to be fully vaccinated, when do you have to be vaccinated by? So you need to walk back 3 weeks for the end of July, then another 6 weeks back from that to ensure that we can get the first and second dose. So we're probably talking about the middle of this month, closer to the end of this month.
All right, thank you for that. I have another question here that was WhatsApp to me just now. Looking at opening up on the 1st of July, and for persons who are fully vaccinated and no testing being done, what will happen if those persons bring in one of the variants, knowing that you can still transmit even though being fully vaccinated?
I think we have to note here, it is not that no testing has been done. We're requiring pre-arrival tests. We are requiring pre-arrival tests for persons who have been fully vaccinated, right? So I think that distinction is very critical to me. So it's very, very unlikely that you'll get somebody who's fully vaccinated. Of course, it can be positive, but more than likely, it's very unlikely you get somebody who tests positive who's fully vaccinated. In fact, when you look at the figures for the US, out of the 95 million people that were at that point that were vaccinated at that point in time, you only had 9,000 breakthroughs of persons who were positive. So that is a 0.000045% of the batch. So certainly there is a chance. So I don't want people to feel we are not testing. You still have to do the pre-arrival test. When you get to Angola, you won't be tested and swabbed here in Angola if you're fully vaccinated. And that is where we have to go. At the end of the day, we do not have the capacity to test everybody who comes to Angola. We just don't. And in a normal year, between 80,000 and 100,000 people come to Angola. Work that back to at least on a monthly basis. And it doesn't make sense if you work at a monthly basis, because some months have more than other months, especially the months of November to, let's say, February. That's where the bulk of people come in. We, to the height of this pandemic over the last few months, we were swabbing at most 400 people a day. And we were doing it with limited resources and almost burning out our people, 400 people a day. If we got to get the economy up open to a point where it can sustain the livelihood in Angola, it must be double or triple that come to Angola per day. We don't have the resources, we don't have the personnel, and it's certainly something that we cannot maintain, right? Angola is one of the few countries that are really testing on arrival. And we did that to keep the country safe. However, with the availability of the vaccine, we have gone at lengths to say, look, and this strategy was published 2 months ago. The exit strategy phases 1, 2, and 3 was published almost 2 months ago. So we are saying that to get to July 1, you need to get our numbers up to a point where between 30 and 40%. And by September, it has to be up to between 70 and 80% of the vaccinated public. So everything is dependent on vaccinations. Everything is dependent on how we roll out our program. But at the end of the day, people have to realize that a minority of people who decide that they don't want to be vaccinated, even though they cannot hold back the majority of the country who are vaccinated to ensure that the country can open.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll take 2 more from the press, and then I'll ask 2 more, and then we'll close. NBR, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have a question. Someone would like to know if effective next week, if food vans would be in a position to go back out to serve, or even during when school reopens.
If I'm not mistaken, food vans are open now. Food vans can function now. In fact, they were put on the list of food establishments since this past week.
Okay. And what about when school reopen? That would require fully vaccination?
No, children at this point can't vaccinate. Children at this time cannot vaccinate, but certainly we are expecting that the persons who care for children, whether they be teachers or whether they be administrators, and some of these persons work in different sectors at the same time. They not only teach our students during the day, but they work in the hotels at night. They entertain at night in different sectors. So we have to ensure that persons protect the children who cannot be vaccinated. So yes, we would expect that certain sectors be vaccinated.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, last question from the media. The Anguillian, your hand is up.
I just want to ask, so as of today, or even maybe next month, early next month, are you in a position to vaccinate 10,000 persons fully to meet your goal?
Yes, the answer is yes. We currently on Ireland have 20,000 doses of the vaccine. In fact, those and some of those vials had more than 10 doses in the vial. So it's possible that we had, in fact, I know that we had more than 20,000 doses. We probably ended up close to 2,100 doses thereabout based on the number of doses extra per each vial. So we do have the capacity to vaccinate up to 10,000 people based on the doses of vaccines that we currently have on Ireland. And looking at the numbers, it is possible we can get there. We have over 8,000 first doses already, 4,000 plus second doses already. We can get to the 10,000 with the numbers of vaccines. Yeah, here. So yes, we do have enough to get up to 10,000 now without having to get any more. However, if we exceed that 10,000 number, we can get more if there's a need. We have a commitment from the British government to get up to 26,000 doses, which will be 13,000 people, right? If we don't cross that threshold of the 10,000 people, then we just won't get any more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Question I have for the Premier. Is there a law requiring persons to be vaccinated in order to be placed on the work schedules? In previous press conferences, such a law was briefly alluded to. Can you elaborate on the status of mandatory vaccination for frontline workers as the island is about to reopen?
There is no law at this point in time. We are encouraging persons to get vaccinated. And as I said earlier today, and as I've said all along, it may become necessary to put regulations in place to make it mandatory for persons who have to come in contact with people to be vaccinated. And I'm sure persons know which jobs that are entailed in that regard. And so that will be the case. So we encourage people to get vaccinated. Now, I've heard that there are rumors out there that, the government has put this law in place, and there's no law, regarding that. But as I said, if it becomes necessary to protect the public, there are certain jobs that it's unavoidable close contact with the public, that those will be required to be vaccinated. And that requires regulations, then they will be put in place.
Thank you. Will we be also be requiring a booster in the future for vaccinated people?
That has not been determined at this time. They're preparing for that eventuality, but that has not been determined at this time. So one step at a time, but at this point in time for AstraZeneca or the others, this has not been the case as yet. Okay. We don't know if it's going to be so.
Okay. And some people have not received their vaccination cards. Where can they pick it up? They were told not to come to the hospital at this time because the vaccinations are taking place at the James and Webster Park. So they're wondering, for those who are vaccinated already, where can they go and collect that blue card, that blue business card like thingy?
Persons are actually collecting the vaccine cards at the Ronald Webster Park. There is a process for that. You just go to the park and you indicate you're coming to collect your card, and they will direct you to the individual that deals with that. So yes, you do collect it at the Webster's Park, not at a hospital.
Okay. If I can ask another one quickly. If someone has their first vaccine and they're due for their second vaccine, can they get that second dose during quarantine? They're outside of Angola waiting to come in.
No, they'll have to wait until the quarantine period is over to ensure they be cleared of the infection and whatnot, and then they go for the second dose. But you have up to 12 weeks from the first dose in theory, so it's not become an issue. Highly unlikely.
Okay. That looks like it. I don't have any more questions from the media, and we have arrived to 4 o'clock. So that's it. Premier, you can close if anyone else want to, just say any parting words.
Yeah, if the CMO or PS wants to have parting words, or Commissioner, if he is still on, before I close.
Just to thank the general public for the support, not only to the support to the Ministry of Health and our staff, but also for coming forward and being vaccinated. We've seen in the last few weeks that persons have really, taken an interest in ensuring that they are vaccinated and that their friends and family are vaccinated. In fact, I know one individual who has ferried more than 15 people to the vaccination site voluntarily, a private sector gentleman who been moving people back and forth, and we want to thank him so much for doing that. We also want to thank, let me say a special thanks to the team, to the health team. It's a phenomenal team. I mean, we just couldn't do it without the persons, and it's not that the persons people know the risks. Our staff know the risks. Our staff know this is not an easy job. We've tested over 7,000, 8,000 people over the last few months. In fact, many more than that over the last few months. And of course, every time you test someone, there's a possibility that person can be positive. In fact, all of the positives that we've gotten so far, somebody locally had to test them. In addition to that, somebody locally had to do the contact tracing and go out there and test more people and investigate and so forth. So I want to thank the team from the bottom of my heart. When I sit down on a daily basis with my team and I look at the persons across the table and the people who are out there in the field, I feel happy to know that these persons are committed. I feel, it's a sense of pride to know that these persons work for Angola and work for the people of Angola, and I want to thank them so much on behalf of the Ministry of Health.
Thank you, CMO. Commissioner of Police.
Yeah, just maybe one thing really. It's I keep saying every time I come on what a fantastic job the public are doing, and they are doing a fantastic job. The only thing of note sometimes I'd ask the public to look around them when they're out. So I normally say about hands, face and space, wash your hands, cover your face and keep the space around you. I think sometimes if people look around them when they're out doing their essential shopping, possibly they will get closer to other people than they think they actually are. So I think the big message today really is, one, thank you very much for your compliance again, but really do take a good look around you when you're shopping or when you're in other close proximity to people, and really create some space around you whilst people are getting vaccinated to protect everybody. And otherwise, that's my closing message really.
Thank you. CMO?
Yeah, I think my only thing is I'm struck by the fact that we really are in a war, a fight for our lives and our existence. Everybody globally, and Angola is no different, and we need everybody. We are all soldiers in this war. We cannot finish this fight without the cooperation of everyone. And if everyone were to see it that way, this is a patriotic thing to do. We're almost there, and the vaccinations are the best way out, the best strategy. And let's get through this together, and we cannot do it by ourselves. No government, no Ministry of Health, and so on. And I wish that people see this for what it is, the existential threat, and it is war. If you look up the definition of war, this is war. Okay? So that's all I have to say. And what are you going to do to protect this country?
Thank you, CMO, for those words. I would like to add that, I would encourage people to just go back and review those interviews done by our doctors and nurses in the diaspora. I think the experience of those on the front lines who are dealing with the COVID war, as you mentioned, CMO, is a real experience. They were on all week, and big shout out to all those Angoleans in the diaspora fighting this COVID war. And what I would like for people to understand is that the vaccine is not the enemy. COVID is the enemy. But we hear conversations about the vaccine as if the vaccine is the enemy. But in actuality, it is COVID And if this virus continues to go unchecked, then it breeds, new variants that are even harder to control. So, this is a serious war that we're in. And, what the vaccine will do is to help us battle this COVID war and to return to normalcy as soon as possible. As the Premier goes to close, if he can just explain the difference between step 1 and step 2 of the exit strategy, a question that I missed. Someone wants to know what's the difference between stage 1, stage 2 in the exit strategy, along with your closing words, and that's a wrap. Thanks.
I want to thank you, Minister, for moderating. As usual, a stellar job to navigate through the questions and the comments. Thank the CMO and the Permanent Secretary Health. Thank the Commissioner of Police, the media. In terms of what is different between step 1 and step 2, basically we had essential businesses that when we started this pause, that was extended to include hardware stores, telecommunications, and now we've essentially, restaurants could still do takeout and these, and that was the plan. That what was part of step 1, and the physical distancing requirements, public gatherings limited to 5 persons. The vaccinated persons could meet at church up to 12. Essentially, now it's where restaurants can do indoor and outdoor sit down in this step 2 process, up to 12 people. The liquor license premises, the gym can now have up to 12 persons, but these have to be fully vaccinated. That is 2 doses and 3 weeks after the 2nd dose. And now 2 families can meet. Before that, you could only be around those who are in your own household. And so that's where we've made some progress. We're still asking that persons keep track of who comes to the establishment and the date, the time, the table sitting, so that if we had to do contact tracing, we can do that. Limit to 2 families coming together. That's where we are. We are progressing as we go. We still are not allowing persons into Anguilla. Persons can leave. There's no restriction on leaving. We have the borders protected. The Royal Anguilla Police Force is doing a great job to keep our borders safe. I want to say, because I know at this time a lot of persons are hurting, not being able to meet their obligations. And that's a challenge that we as government are facing. The underemployment benefit of 1,000 EC dollars comes to an end at the end of this month, a couple of weeks. And we are looking to see what we can cut so that we can extend that. But that requires we have to cut certain essential services to make sure that we can support people. So that's why we are asking. The only way that we can, get money into this country is by the economy opening back up. And that means that we have to be vaccinated so that we are safe. Because if we were to open and population is not safe, then you're going to use up those resources we don't have in the healthcare system. It's already stretched way past, thin, and so these are the reasons why we are so insistent on getting vaccinated so we can get this economy going. And so, as I said, if we have to find money to extend those benefits, we have to take it from some other place which is essential, and that means some other entity suffers. And so, we don't want to have to take money from one place where it's already essential to move it to keep people, provided with this. And then so, people say, oh, well, why don't you just go and ask the UK for more money? Well, they have done a great job of giving us up to 100 million EC dollars to help with COVID relief. They're paying for the additional cost of border security. They've helped the healthcare system to keep it going, and they've provided us with free vaccines when there are places in England and the UK right now that need those vaccines, but they gave them to us so that we can have a chance, so that we could be safe and immune and healthy. And so, it just seems very frustrating that we get to this point where there is this vaccine hesitancy and defiance, I would say more so than hesitancy now, because you've heard, as you said, and we mentioned, our Anguillan physicians abroad have talked about their experiences. They have said the vaccine is the only way that we can get past this existential threat to our very existence. Certainly we do the hygiene measures, we do the social distancing. We want to make sure that, we stay home and only go out when it's essential. But that won't get us to where we need to be, because the longer we stay closed down, the more we're going to hurt. And it's not going to be the virus only that can kill us. Starvation can do the same. So I'm saying, let's vaccinate, and let's get where we get healthy, or we stay healthy, and we get, do the things that are necessary, follow the regulations, because I can assure you that the Commissioner of Police, he may seem a very even-tempered and easygoing person, but he understands that regulations have to be enforced, and he's going to do that to the letter of the law to make sure that we can keep people away from each other, keep the country safe, so that we can get back to near normalcy. I thank everyone for their time and attention, and hope that we will be governed accordingly. Thank you very much. And the next press conference will be at 3 o'clock on Monday. Thank you.
Media, to the questions, all the questions that came in through WhatsApp, through Facebook. Thank you guys for logging in and viewing. See you all on Monday. Bye.